I'm like a lightning rod because I'm attacking New York's finest. They're self-proclaimed king of New York. You know what I mean?
Did you feel at any point that you was like betraying New York or Biggie by going to do that interview with Tupac at that time?
His side of the story was like, how could I be mad at a whole coast? That don't even make sense.
And I think Puff is probably one of the only persons that heard that interview. Angie can't say that nobody heard that interview, because it wasn't her ideal not to put it out.
Tupac hit us with Hit 'Em Up, and that joint was cold.
Plus, Puffy trying to see me weak, hearts I rip, Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia, some more.
We would take your turntables, you played Hit 'Em Up. That thing hurt to this day.
An old interview with Tupac has resurfaced, and it's causing a stir on social media. In it, Tupac seems to have been warning us about everything that's now unfolding with Diddy. At this point, it's clear to everyone that Diddy wasn't just running a music label, he was allegedly running an entire operation behind the scenes. Tupac was one of the first to publicly speak about it. Remember that famous Angie Martinez interview? She claimed she didn't want to release the full interview because of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. But it turns out Angie wasn't the one who decided to hold back the interview, it was Diddy. Now, with the federal trial in progress and people finally feeling safe enough to speak out, it's becoming clear that Tupac was right all along. He saw something early on about how Diddy operated, the fear, the silence, and the people he kept around him. Tupac tried to call it out, but back in the 90s, people dismissed him. They called him paranoid or said he was just jealous of the New York scene. But in hindsight, Tupac was simply ahead of his time. He saw things others weren't ready to acknowledge. So what exactly did Tupac say about Diddy in that interview? And is this why his life was cut short? Let's break it down. Tupac said, every time it benefits New York, he represents New York. When it doesn't, he's just another rapper. But y'all let him wear y'all. As many of you know, there have been rumors for years about Diddy's possible involvement in Tupac's death. These rumors have always lingered, stories from insiders, things that never quite went away. Many believe this all started when Diddy felt threatened by Tupac, not just musically, but personally. Tupac had that raw presence, charisma, talent, and real street credibility. Diddy had money and power, but Tupac had the people.
I'm trying to find my way in the world, you know, I'm trying to be somebody instead of just make money off everybody. You know what I'm saying? And so I go down paths that haven't been traveled before, and I usually mess up. But I learn, you know what I'm saying? I come back stronger. You know, I'm not talking ignorant, you know what I'm saying? So I obviously put thought into what I do.
Tupac was everything Diddy wished he could be: smart, talented, good-looking, funny, stylish. Tupac had that natural star power that didn't need to be forced. Most importantly, Tupac cared about his community. Unlike Diddy, who was often seen plotting and scheming to use or control those around him, Tupac had genuine concern for his people.
Or play everyone around him.
I was like, yo, Pop, so like, how much would you charge me to do an ad? And he sits down and he gets really quiet. It felt like he stayed quiet for an hour. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, I shouldn't have asked him. Then he looks at me and says, yo, I ain't gonna charge you for nothing. He says, you black, I don't charge my people for nothing. It was just the way he was. He just wanted to support the business. He knew what we were faced against. He knew how competitive the fashion industry was.
He was very intentional to make sure that I was seen. And I think bigger than everything is the fact that I see you and I want the world to see you. He said it was important because I was a black designer.
Meanwhile, Diddy was trying too hard. People who knew him growing up say he's always been insecure, and it showed. He wanted to be the guy, but just didn't have that thing. He couldn't rap, couldn't act, didn't have swag, and certainly didn't have the looks. Since the 90s, people in the industry have said Diddy was always a try-hard, cowardly, attention-hungry figure obsessed with being feared and respected.
And that's not even to take away from him, but I know he's a weirdo. You know what I mean? Like, we've been hearing some stories about him that he been doing some weird things and moving weird, and he always been, you know what I mean, always been a snake type of dude. So it's not surprising that when you hear all types of crazy stuff coming out now, you know what I mean? We always heard that he was, you know, moving in a strange way. And it wasn't surprising when we did hear like he was part of this and he put the hit out on Pac or he paid for it. It wasn't surprising for us because you gotta understand, like, he always been a very fidgety person. Like, you know, like a scary, nervous individual. scary people with money do some scary things. You understand? Because he never was a person that was built to confront stuff on his own.
And with everything coming to light now, Diddy is starting to appear more and more like a straight-up psychopath, someone who would do whatever it took to reach the top, using people, betraying them, ruining their lives, and never feeling any remorse. He forced his way into that position, but let's be honest, he never had the natural charm that Tupac had. Pac didn't have to fake anything, while Diddy always seemed like he was trying to hard.
I'm the hardest hustler in the world. This is Savage Part 2. Don't tell me about it's 2022 and I'm still a savage. Whatever I want, I get. Whatever I want, I get.
According to Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, this is exactly why Diddy couldn't handle Tupac's rise to fame. People were naturally drawn to Pac, while Diddy had to pay people to be around him. So what did Diddy do? He started copying, Pac adopting his style, clothes, and even the type of women he went after. It started to look obsessive.
Everybody knew that Puff took Tupac blueprint and changed Biggs and Bad Boy in image. I Get Around, talked about how fly you was, how many girls you mess with, how many cars you drive, how much money you got, what you willing to do. He took his image. Pac was the first one on the scene wearing Versace shirts. He went and got the same Versace shirts Pac had. Which, all right, some dudes would do that. You would never catch me wearing something else, something that somebody else got. He was knocking down all the women that he thought Pac was knocking down. But Puff had an obsession with him for whatever reason it was, because he started wanting to act. He started wanting to rap. He had an obsession so bad that at his Grammy Award winning speech, he used the same speech that Pac used.
And there's even talk that Diddy got so jealous of Pac that he allegedly started getting aggressive with Kim Porter after finding out that she had a thing for Pac.
And what Puff idolized some of the things that he was doing. So, whatever they may have done, and you gotta remember, they was all swingers. It came to the point where him and Pac wasn't cool no more at all. And maybe Kim liked him, Pac, more than he liked Puff, but she couldn't have Pac.
But Tupac saw through Diddy early on, way before most people caught on. He was actually one of the first in the industry to talk about how Diddy might have been involved with men, but it wasn't just that. According to Suge Knight, Tupac was also concerned about Diddy's allegedly creepy behavior around young artists. Now, with all the stories surfacing about Diddy and people like Justin Bieber, it seems like Pac was ahead of his time on this issue. There's even an interview where Suge Knight said Tupac wanted to call out certain rappers and producers who had secret relationships, not out of hate, but because he thought some of them were using their power in harmful ways and could end up exploiting young people.
If it was a rapper that mess with guys and go both ways, Pac didn't feel that was good. Because Pac felt he was real serious about the music. So if you're a producer or you rap, and regardless if you're married or not, and you got a boyfriend that works for you, a real boyfriend who used to be a dancer, Pac would study all the facts. Pac was real smart. So before he say something, he'd go and do his homework. He'd say, okay, this guy right here, they say he gay, he go both ways. I'm not gonna put it out there on him yet, but I'm gonna do my research, and if it's true, the world should know. Because this guy might be around one of those little kids one day and mess around with them, and so I'm gonna do it to actually save him from a little child. That's why Pac attacked certain rappers and said they gay.
Suge Knight didn't mention any names directly, but from what he said, it's pretty clear he was referring to Diddy. He talked about a producer with a boyfriend who used to be a dancer, which could very well be Andre Harrell, the late founder of Uptown Records, who some believe had a special connection with Diddy. Speaking of dancing, Diddy actually started out as a dancer himself, and Suge would tease him for appearing in Bad Boys music videos back in the day.
First of all, I'd like to thank God. Second of all, I'd like to thank my whole entire Death Row family on both sides, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to tell Tupac to keep his guards up, we ride with him. And one other thing I'd like to say, any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
With all the new buzz about Diddy's possible connection to Tupac's death, fans are saying the coincidences are getting too crazy to ignore. But we also need to bring up that infamous Angie Martinez interview. Angie always claimed she didn't release the full interview because she didn't want to escalate the East Coast-West Coast beef at the time. However, Gene Deal recently confirmed that the real reason the interview was never fully released was that Diddy himself blocked it.
Angie Martinez, right? When she went to LA and did the interview with Tupac, did y'all know about that on Bad Boy side?
Yeah, we heard about it. And I think Puff is probably one of the only persons that heard that interview. Angie can't say that nobody heard that interview, because it wasn't her ideal not to put it out. Do you understand what I'm saying? She can say that it wasn't her idea, but it's not owned by her. Who owns that interview? Because who was sent out there? Hot 97 owns it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So she could take all the accolades for not putting it out. You understand? But when you send somebody or someone of your person do an interview under the banner of Hot 97, it belongs to Hot 97. And Puff in the back ran Hot 97. That's how he got Wendy Williams fired. You understand what I'm saying? He can make phone calls to say something, to say, don't put this out, don't do this, take this off. He had that kind of power.
So Puffy, he did hear that Tupac interview.
Why would you try to stop something if you ain't heard it?
Angie ended up only releasing about 10 minutes of what was actually a 2-hour interview. And from what insiders say, Tupac had a lot to say about Diddy in that full version.
And what's going down with that? So I wanted to get his view, and here goes a little something.
The East Coast, West Coast thing is a musical thing. That's separate. That's a whole thing separate to itself. That's a musical thing. Where we have been beefing about whose music is better or which is this or which is that
like it's gotten
from
real
the beginning.
bad
It
right
has
now.
because I'm like a lightning rod because I'm attacking New York's finest. They're self-proclaimed king of New York. You know what I mean? I'm attacking them so because nobody is separating themselves from them. They still
talking about
how
Biggie.
raw. Yes, they still
Okay.
talking about how raw he is and woo woo woo. He's a representative. He represents New York.
There are a lot.
Every time it benefits New York, he represents New York. When it don't benefit New York, now he's just another rapper.
I'm not
But y'all
saying
let him
that.
wear y'all colors. You let him shout y'all stuff. When Biggie came out here, he screamed out, "Brooklyn's in the house." We don't beef and say, "Why you starting a war?" Why is everybody, when I say West Side, it hurt people's feelings?
I don't think it's because you're saying West Side. I think because
They think
you know,
they own me.
Nah, not at all. I think it's because, you know, Dog Pound video came out, New York, and I'm not saying you was in the video. I know you wasn't in the video.
I wasn't
but
in it. I didn't write it. I didn't produce the beat.
All right, so let's
I
take
was in
that.
jail. The album was done while I was in jail. That's separate.
It just, you know what it is? It's New York's visualizing your camp, which to them is Death Row, which is Dog Pound, which is Snoop, and which is that whole thing. And it was all one time. The New York video came out. You know, brothers was stepping on cars in New York, stepping on, on New York like they owned it. Boom, you come out, next video, West.
What about the video? Yes,
It's a whole-
to me, it is the best coast. And everybody in New York feel like that too. That's why they come out here and party, man. Why is everybody acting like, I didn't say, for me to say Cali is the West Coast, I never said New York ain't shit. I never said New York is the worst coast. I just said where I'm at, where I'm from is the best coast. Why is that offending people?
This all unfolded during the peak of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, and people were eager to hear what Tupac had to say. However, Angie claimed that releasing the full interview at the time would have only made things worse, and she didn't want to stir up any more drama or vice.
That's where I interviewed him.
That's
where
it
happened. It was in the middle of like all that. It was smack in the middle of like what was going on, crazy. And I was 22 and maybe, if that. It was like my first big interview, and I flew to the West Coast by myself.
Wow.
Didn't know him from nowhere. And I really just went there and interviewed him. And what I got was so crazy that at the time, I couldn't air it on the radio because I was literally afraid that somebody would die. I literally thought I would make a bad situation worse. When my intent was to try to smooth it out and make it better, but he was so angry and passionate at the time that I really felt like if I would have came, put it on the radio, it would have got worse. So what I did is I have this 2-hour interview, right?
Yeah.
What I did was I aired 5 or 10 minutes of it, the best pieces that I felt like wouldn't cause more problems, and that's all I ever aired. So technically, I have this 2-hour Tupac interview that's never been ever heard.
And that's going to be offered on your site, Throwback Thursdays. You got to put the whole interview.
Yeah, no, I'm at the place. Everybody's like pressuring me to do it.
You have to put the entire interview.
I feel like now, I do feel like now it might be a better time because I feel like everything's settled. It's part of history. I feel like almost selfish because it's so amazing. I feel selfish that I have kept it to myself.
But now we know that Angie essentially had no choice but to keep that interview locked away. Going against Diddy's wishes back then could have resulted in her being fired or potentially facing even worse consequences. The interview has been surrounded by rumors for years, and here's what people say Tupac allegedly revealed. Tupac supposedly called out Diddy by name throughout the interview, claiming that Diddy was behind a lot of the drama, the setups, and the threats dating back to the 1994 shooting at Quad Studios. He also allegedly stated that Diddy had connections to street gangs and may have even been involved in setting him up, or at the very least, allowed it to happen. Had this interview aired back then, it would have been enormous, especially with the East Coast-West Coast feud already so heated. But here's where things get even more serious. Tupac also reportedly exposed how Diddy really ran things at Bad Boy, not like a typical record label, but more like a mafia. He allegedly said that there were more powerful people behind Diddy, controlling things from the shadows, pushing gangster rap and negative influences to harm the black community and profit from its trauma.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons.
Literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. The records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Some records are made by committee, meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. You have, the record company pushing the narrative. Some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full.
Tupac is said to have accused these higher-ups of using figures like Diddy as pawns to divide the community. Some sources even claim that Tupac named these top figures in the industry.
And I've always had total love and support and understanding that after my second marriage failed, because I had been 100% heterosexual up until that point, that I opened myself up after the failure of my second marriage. Having read something about bisexuality, my story was different. I just found that I would open myself up to the possibility of a relationship based on the person and not on gender. And I did after seeing a man or a woman for about a 4 or 5 year period of time and directing them, entered into a relationship with a man.
If this is true, it might explain why, even now, with Diddy facing consequences and his Bad Boy empire crumbling, that full interview still hasn't been released. If Tupac really exposed the true power players at the top, it makes sense they would want to keep it under wraps forever. Now, I want to know what you think. Was Tupac simply exposing Diddy's shady actions, or did the orders to block the interview come from much higher up, with the real puppet masters fearing that Pac would reveal everything? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't miss the next video.